The MMA Math Prediction Model is sitting at 13-2 with 2 correct predictions since our last episode. We had Sergey Pavlovich in a relatively uninspiring performance grind out a win against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and we had Nasruddin Imavov break my heart and finish Israel Adesanya in round 2. In this episode, we are going to be looking at the 2 title fights at the upcoming UFC 312. If you're new to this series, the MMA Math Prediction Model is part of a long-running experiment on my channel where I'm testing the commonly held notion that MMA Math is an unreliable predictor for the results of a fight. This series is not intended to be an accurate predictor, it's merely an experiment. The rules for the model are listed in the description box below. Let's start with the co-main event for the Strawweight title between Tatiana Suarez and Zhang Weili. This fight poses a unique challenge for the model, being the 4-year layoff Tatiana has had in the middle of her last 5 fights. I think this is a good opportunity for the model to collect some data on how the long layoffs due to an injury should be accounted for. So in this instance, we are not going to do any adjustments based on her layoff, but it's an important factor to keep in mind. So let's get started with the challenger. Tatiana will gain 5 points off the bat as she is undefeated in her MMA career. 5 fights ago for Suarez takes us all the way back to the 9th of May 2018 for the co-main event of UFC Fight Night, Maia vs Usman, where Tatiana, now ranked 12th, will be put up against 9th ranked Alexa Grasso. Taking place during the peak of Suarez's pre-neck injury run, she would storm through the future champion, catching Grasso in a rear naked choke just 2 minutes and 44 seconds into the first round and gaining 12 points. 4 fights ago takes us to the 8th of September 2018 for UFC 228 Woodley vs Till, where Suarez, now ranked 9, would be put up against the 6th ranked contender Carla Esparza. In another dominant display of her wrestling, Suarez would bully the former and future champion for 2 rounds, landing takedowns at will and controlling a majority of the fight on the ground. Late in the third, Suarez would finish the fight via ground and pound 4 minutes and 33 seconds into the third and earn 15 points and an extra 2, as this is where her finish streak will end. 3 fights ago takes us to the 8th of June 2019 for UFC 238 Cejudo vs Moraes, where number 2 ranked Suarez would be put up against the 3rd ranked Nina Ansaroff. Fighting through the early stages of the neck injury that would keep her out for almost 4 years after this fight, Suarez would face her first real adversity in this fight, looking a bit sloppy on the feet and hesitant once she got the fight to the ground. However, she still won the fight fairly easily on her way to a unanimous decision victory and earning 13 points. 2 fights ago for Tatiana takes us to the 25th of February 2023 for UFC Fight Night Muniz vs Allen, where Suarez, now unranked after being on the sidelines for over 3 years due to an injury, would take an also unranked Montana De La Rosa in a flyweight bout. In her return to the cage, Suarez would be a bit rusty compared to her initial run, and combined with being undersized for the division, she would struggle by her standards to get the fight to the ground. In round 2, however, Suarez would jump a power guillotine and had enough strength to pull it off, finishing the fight 2 minutes and 51 seconds into the second. After the flyweight adjustment, she will earn 3.5 points. Tatiana's last fight takes us to the 5th of August 2023 for the co-main event of UFC Fight Night Sandhagen vs Font. We're back at strawweight for the first time in over 4 years. A 10th ranked Suarez will be given the 5th ranked former champion Jessica Andrade. In a true return to form post-injury, Suarez would remind the world that she's the best strawweight wrestler in the world by a large margin, taking down and controlling Andrade anytime she had any sort of a grip. Tatiana would catch Andrade in a one-arm guillotine after a slick transition on the ground and finish the fight 1 minute and 31 seconds into the second round, earning 19 points as well as an extra 2 for the finish streak she takes into the fight. With the over 3-year layoff and how frankly dominant she is, it's easy to forget that Suarez has been putting in the work against former and future champions. But let's see how her MMA math compares against the current champion Zhang Weili, who will lose 5 points off the bat as she is now 35. 5 fights ago for Zhang takes us to the 6th of November 2021 for the co-main event of UFC 268 Usman vs Covington 2, where Zhang will challenge the current champion who she previously just lost the strap to, Rose Namajunas. In a very close and competitive fight, both fighters would take a more passive game plan than what they were known for at this point. Ultimately, Thug Rose would be given the razor-close split decision that really could have gone either way. Due to losing to the champ via split decision, Zhang won't actually lose any points for this loss. 4 fights ago takes us to the 11th of June 2022 for UFC 275 Teixeira vs Prohaska, where Weili, now ranked 2, would take on unranked but former champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk in a rematch of their all-time classic. In another great fight, Zhang looked extremely strong and Joanna had her moments, getting off some nice shots standing. Ultimately, Zhang would catch Joanna with a brutal spinning back fist, knocking out the former champion 2 minutes and 28 seconds into the second and earning 5.5 points. 3 fights ago for Zhang takes us to the 12th of November 2022 for UFC 281 Adesanya vs Pereira, where second-ranked Zhang Weili would get a chance to recapture her strawweight title against now champion Carla Esparza. In a dominant display for Zhang, she would display a continued improvement in her game, completely neutralizing Esparza's wrestling threat, while also outmuscling her and quite frankly bullying her wherever the fight went. Ultimately, Zhang would catch a nifty rear naked choke from a crucifix position, finishing the fight 1 minute and 5 seconds into the second, regaining her strawweight title and earning 21 points, as well as an extra 2 points, as this is where her finish streak will end. 2 fights ago takes us to the 19th of August 2023 for the co-main event of UFC 292 Sterling vs O'Malley, where Zhang will be looking to make her first defense in her second reign against 5th ranked Amanda Lemos. In another dominant display from the champion that is best summarized as 296 total strikes by the champ compared to a mere 29 by the challenger, Zhang would win every round on 2 judges' scorecards and earn 15 points. Zhang Weili's last fight takes us to the co-main event of UFC 300, where Zhang will look to make the second defense in her reign against the number 1 ranked contender Yan Xiaonan. Xiaonan would somehow survive getting put to sleep at the end of the first, almost getting TKO'd in the second, to put in a surprisingly competitive final 3 rounds against the champ. Ultimately, the champ however will be given the unanimous decision victory, winning 4 out of 5 rounds on all judges' scorecards and earning 15 points. So there we have it, MMA Math predicts Tatiana Suarez will become the strawweight champion and beat Zhang Weili. I for one find it extremely hard to visualize how this fight is going to play out, primarily due to the question marks surrounding Tatiana, as she really hasn't been tested, has no 5-round experience, and has suffered an injury that would be career-ending to a lot of fighters. All I know is that I can't make a comfortable prediction, and I do think we will learn who is the best strawweight in the world and if Tatiana can live up to her post-injury potential. With the strawweights out of the way, let's move on to the main event rematch for the middleweight title against champ Dricus Du Plessis and the number 1 ranked contender Sean Strickland. Based on current form and the result of their first fight, I think we all know who the model is going to pick, but let's take this walk down memory lane. Anyways, starting with the former champion Sean Strickland. 5 fights ago for Strickland takes us to the 14th of January 2023 for the main event of UFC Fight Night Strickland vs Imavov, where Strickland would take a short notice fight at light heavyweight against 12th ranked middleweight Nassourdine Imavov. In what has become a blueprint for a typical Strickland performance, he would suffocate Nassourdine with his constant forward pressure and tight defense, all while moving forward. Nassourdine would have moments of success sprinkled in when changing up the tempo, but ultimately Strickland would be given the fairly dominant unanimous decision victory and earn 4 points. 4 fights ago takes us to the 1st of July 2023 for the main event of UFC Fight Night Strickland vs Magomedov, where 7th ranked Strickland would take on an unranked Abus Magomedov. In a strange matchmaking decision, Strickland would again absolutely drown the UFC newcomer, who was only in his second UFC fight with 19 seconds total cage time. After Magomedov completely gassed in round 1, Strickland would pile it on in round 2 and finish the fight 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the round and earn 5.5 points. 3 fights ago for Strickland takes us to the 9th of September 2023 for the main event of UFC 293 Adesanya vs Strickland, where Sean will step up and take an opportune title shot against middleweight champion Israel Adesanya. Strickland would utilize a game plan that has historically given Adesanya problems, being defensively tight with constant forward pressure. After dropping Izzy early in the fight, Strickland wouldn't let off the gas and would win 4 out of 5 rounds on all judges' scorecards, earning 16 points as well as the middleweight strap. 2 fights ago for Strickland takes us to the 20th of January 2024 for the main event of UFC 297 Strickland vs Du Plessis for their first fight, where Du Plessis would be coming in as the 2nd ranked contender. In a contest between awkward offense versus awkward offense, we got a fairly awkward fight. Upon rewatching, I have no idea how anyone could argue either fighter definitively won. DDP looked powerful when getting takedowns but couldn't hold Sean down, and Strickland would land 173 significant strikes, but nothing felt too substantial and it wouldn't stop DDP's forward pressure. A pure coin flip from my perspective, and the judges would favour DDP in a split decision, and Sean will lose 3 points and the middleweight championship. Strickland's last fight takes us to the 1st of June 2024 for UFC 302 Makhachev vs Poirier, where Strickland, now ranked 1, would be given the 7th ranked contender Paulo Costa. In another typical Strickland performance, he would march forward, jab, teep, repeat, and in my opinion dominate the fight bell to bell. But unfortunately for Strickland, he would see one of the worst scorecards in UFC history, with one judge giving 4 rounds to Costa. Sean would win via split decision and he will gain 7 points. Let's now move on to the champion Dricus Du Plessis, who will gain 5 points off the bat as he is undefeated in the UFC, and an extra 5 as he has beat Strickland already. 5 fights ago for DDP takes us to the 10th of December 2022 for UFC 282 Blachowicz vs Ankalev, where now 14th ranked Du Plessis would take on 10th ranked Darren Till. DDP would comfortably handle the former title challenger, securing 6 out of 6 takedowns and landing almost 3 times the significant strikes, on his way to securing a rear naked choke 2 minutes and 43 seconds into the 3rd round and gaining 11 points. 4 fights ago takes us to the 4th of March 2023 for UFC 285 Jones vs Garn, where now 10th ranked DDP would take on 5th ranked Derek Brunson. In a top 5 goofy UFC fight of all time, both fighters would have moments of success in round 1 after some fun exchanges. In round 2, however, DDP would turn up the pressure and end up on top at the end of the round after landing some haymakers. After some ground and pound, Brunson's corner would throw in the towel and DDP would get the TKO victory and earn 16 points. 3 fights ago takes us to the 8th of July 2023 for UFC 290 Volkanovski vs Rodriguez, where DDP, now ranked 5th, would be given the former champion and 2nd ranked Robert Whittaker. In a breakthrough performance for DDP, he would start slow but very quickly turn on the time to win switch and start to overpower Whittaker heading into round 2, where DDP would catch Whittaker with a power jab and chase the finish, ultimately ending the fight 2 minutes and 23 seconds into the 2nd and earning 19 points and an extra 3, as this is where his finish streak will end. 2 fights ago is his first fight with Strickland, which we talked about earlier, but DDP, on top of winning the middleweight strap, will gain 14 points. DDP's last fight takes us to the 17th of August 2024 for the main event of UFC 305 Du Plessis vs Adesanya, where DDP would look to defend the middleweight belt for the first time against former 2-time champion and 2nd ranked Israel Adesanya. In a fairly even fight on the scorecards heading into the 4th, Izzy would start to turn it up, but somehow in typical Dricus fashion, he would find himself catching Izzy in a rear naked choke 3 minutes and 38 seconds into the 4th, and DDP will gain 19 points. So as we probably all expected, MMA Math predicts DDP will beat Sean Strickland again. However, when looking at their first fight, especially considering it didn't take place not too long ago, I don't see how anyone can comfortably predict a victory for either party. I personally think DDP has more options for victory and more room for improvement from their first fight, but much like the co-main event, I personally wouldn't be banking on picking an outright winner. Super interesting fight, and I'm really excited for it nonetheless. Thank you to everyone who made it to the end of the video, and a huge thanks to everyone who has been continually supporting the channel. I'm going to be taking a small break from the MMA Math series for a couple cards at least, I'm not too sure. I'm hoping the next episode to be around the next pay-per-view, but I'm just not too sure. There are some life factors getting in the way at the moment. To do this as a weekly series, it's just not feasible at the moment. I hope you all understand, I'm still going to be making videos, but just using my more limited time on less time-sensitive videos. But I will take this small break from the series to work on and revamp the format to look at more fights on each card while still making the video itself enjoyable and engaging. Looking at more fights is the primary feedback I receive on this series, and I want to be able to deliver on that. So stay tuned, and I'll see you all in the next video.